Hey guys, what's going on, and welcome to Thrones of Britannia. So I thought we'd be taking a look at this game today, have a look and have a bit of a review of everything that's going on and what's changed from Total War Attila. So just to let you guys know, I have not received a game key or anything like that from Creative Assembly, so it's complete a bias, entirely my own opinion. I've been playing Total War games for quite a while now, sort of since back at Rome Total War 1, so I have a bit of an idea sort of what I'm looking for and sort of what I expect out of a Total War game. And just to put out of there, obviously this is just my opinion. Different people would have different experiences, and I'm just trying to highlight perhaps a few of the things I found in the game, good and bad, and sort of just how I found it so far from playing. Personally, I'm a huge fan of sort of the era. I've certainly read all the Uhtred books for those of them who know it, and that sort of makes it particularly enjoyable. There's a huge range of factions that are available, sort of from some of the English kingdoms through the Welsh, the Gaelic kingdoms, and sort of all the Vikings, both from sort of the Northumbria land armies through to sort of the Sea Kings. So for those of you who have never played before, Total War sort of games tend to work like you have access to this campaign map, which is turn-based, where you raise your armies, build separate buildings, command your kingdom, have access to all your family members, etc., and sort of command from a strategic level. Then by commanding your armies and picking which battles you want to get involved in, you get sort of involved in a real-time strategy battle, such as this. There's quite a wide range of different factions and units available in the game, and we see quite a good variety of different units. The battles seem to play out pretty nicely. Obviously it's based on the Total War Attila game engine. Although having said that, sometimes it does feel like all the different unit varieties available are kind of a little bit similar, as in each faction has its own unique abilities and unique units, but sometimes these unique units are just varieties of spearmen and axemen, but that's just kind of part of the period of the time, and being a game set in a relatively geographically small area of the British Isles. Beyond faction-specific units, each faction also has access to sort of a specific attribute. For example, of the Great Viking North armies, this is the Heir King mechanic, which kind of works is balancing the happiness of both the loyal English subjects and the Vikings who have landed and conquered the territory. This is kind of a cool little addition to the game, and it happens on all the different factions. For example, the Welsh get it in the form of heroism, and I think it's nice that they're adding in different elements to the game, and it's certainly a good step going forwards. Although some of them, particularly like the Welsh ones, do feel a little bit like, you know, fulfill this objective and you just get X increase in farm income or X increase in food production, and could perhaps do with fleshing out a little bit more. We also see improved family and governor mechanics, which is something I think is quite a good addition to the game. You have to balance governors for each of your estates, and you cannot keep too many estates for yourself, otherwise the nobility start to get pretty unhappy. You have to deal with marriages and looking after your own family, as well as dealing with some disloyal nobles. You can either pay them off, or personally I prefer to just bump them off and have them killed. Saves them coming back for asking more money later on. One significant change that people will notice upon loading into the game is the addition of major settlements and minor settlements, and this means that minor settlements are actually completely ungarrisoned. I think people are going to find this a bit of a shock at first, as I did, because it sort of means that you have to keep armies in the field and you have to be on your toes looking out for enemy armies to sort of watch out and defend to make sure they don't flank round to get to your food producing and income producing settlements, which are easy for them to do. I didn't really like this at first because I found trying to sort of micromanage this and watch out for enemy armies to be quite annoying, but after getting used to it for a while, I think it is probably a good addition to the game, and certainly adds sort of another facet and makes it a little bit more challenging than perhaps some of the other Total War games. But once you've got past all the minor settlements and get into besieging an enemy major settlement or defending one of your main settlements from an enemy attack, this is where the game really comes to life. It feels like Creative Assembly have put quite a lot of effort into making these really sort of dynamic and enjoyable battles. They're really wide open spaces with lots of possible angles of attack, and you can really sort of pick and choose where you want to launch your assault from. Along with sort of the pretty great graphics the game has, and the ability to combine land and sea attacks, this makes it really interesting. I generally find the AI seem to play these battles pretty well. They line up on the walls properly. Very occasionally I've had one or two battles where they seem to have bugged out slightly and not really wanted to man the walls properly, or man the walls where I have a small diversionary force, which is a bit of a shame, but on the whole they seem to play really well, and they are probably one of the most exciting parts of the game. Beyond the pretty epic siege battles, we've also had the introduction of food and supplies as a mechanic, which is I think something that's a really good step in the right direction, and introducing new and interesting mechanics is always a good thing. Although I do find it perhaps a little easy to exploit at times, and I kind of wish it stayed a little bit harder, particularly into the late game where it kind of gets easier. One of my favourite things though is the way they've changed recruitment, so that now units recruit at low strength rather than coming in instantly at full strength, and that's kind of pretty cool because it's representative of how it takes time for the units to gather as they recruit soldiers and gathered levies and stuff from the local surrounding area. I think that's a really nice and interesting addition to the game and kind of changes how you have to play. Small changes to public order also mean that instead of having a fixed rebellion point at a -100 public order, instead it's now sort of a modified chance, so the lower your public order, the increased chance you have of a revolt breaking out on your hands. And with the long recruitment times, you really have to keep on top of this. Furthermore, the technology tree has changed and is now sort of locked behind your actions as a commander. So if you don't fight in any siege battles and get no siege experience, then unfortunately you will not be able to unlock better siege technology. I think this is kind of cool, and it kind of makes sense. You have to fulfill certain actions to be able to start researching certain technologies, and I think that's a good thing to introduce into the game. However, one of the areas I really feel the games fall down is in stances. We have lost the ability of Forced March and Ambush, which are two abilities really that I felt were kind of quite heavily used in Attila, particularly the Forced March, and particularly now that minor settlements don't have any garrisons and you need to be sort of darting around the map more. That limited movement range seems a real shame. And the ability to use Ambush not only to ambush enemy units, but to hide your units when you're trying to escape from an enemy, seems a step backwards really compared to the previous games, and something I don't really know why they've done. Obviously that they just didn't have enough resources to put enough time in to do it properly, and that's kind of a shame, and it's a shame to always be removing game mechanics when they could have been reworked or improved if they felt that they needed changing. Another thing that's been removed are basically all of the agents, which while on the face of it may seem like kind of a good thing because there's no more high tier generals just getting killed by a random assassin and that sort of thing, which obviously was one of the problems in the previous Total War games. I think to remove them entirely was perhaps slightly missed the point, and I think they would have been better being reworked, because now the lack of ability of having any spies or any assassins, the ability to go and scout out enemy cities, beginning to start having a look, trying to get your spies to open the gates to enemy cities, and to maybe killing off enemy kings through different means other than just fighting them in battle, is kind of a shame to lose that ability. And I think that's a bit of a step backwards. And again, I think it's just kind of a shortage of resources in this area. It really could have been looked at and reworked as a mechanic rather than just being scrapped entirely, which I think it has. So in terms of graphics and the audio visual element of the game, I think it has been done really well, as you would expect from a Total War game of this era, and based on the Attila engine. I think the graphics are absolutely amazing. I particularly love this clip of the troops just starting to charge out the forest on a foggy winter's day, so confident of victory as they charge down the hill to engage their foe. The graphics, yeah, really have been done truly well. On top of that, I think the audio is pretty good, as you would expect from a Total War game. You know, they're really quite immersive of-period audio, which really adds to the game and I think is a great addition. So is the game worth buying? Well, I'm sort of half and half. For me, particularly having a love of this period, I'm quite pleased I brought it. I'm certainly going to be playing it quite a lot more going forwards. I think it's one of those games, it's sort of a half Total War. It's obviously not a whole new reincarnation of Total War being based on the Attila engine, and they have kind of priced it as such at a lower price point, and it is part of the Total War Saga series. It's nice that they have introduced some new game mechanics such as the food, supplies, but I do think it falls down in other areas, particularly with the reduction of stances and spies and agents, and sort of a real lack of anything drastically new kind of lets the game down a little bit. So unless you're a particular fan of the series, I'd perhaps give it a miss, but if you like the period and like the series, then, because it is a lot cheaper than some of the other Total War games, and it is great fun. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little mini review, guys. If you have, please give the video a like, it really helps the channel out. Subscribe to the channel for lots more Total War content. I also do a lot of Total War Arena content. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you found it helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I shall see you all on the next video.